to understand dharma properly, what it says, dharma kshetra is the domain of dharma and domain of karma. So we have to relate them. And when we talk about dharma, we have to understand the karma kshetra as well. Those are two interrelated domains. And to understand that, I'll bring a modern example of internet. When we open the computer, connect to the service provider and surf the net, there is a value system there that needs to be done. There's do's and don'ts of chat rooms, and there are controls, parental controls and other things that happen. And when you then switch off the computer, the space does not disappear. The space of cyberspace is still there, but you are not relating to that cyberspace. So similarly, when we talk about Kurukshetra, Kurukshetra may be a place, and maybe the war happened there. But here, my view is, and the meaning that I want to see into that, is that there is a domain, there is an area where we are born, and from birth to death, we do karma. From the beginning, when a person is born, he cries. The crying may be not in his control, but he does cry, his heart beats, they are all karma. And we keep on doing karma one by one all our life. So this is the domain where we need a value system. And that value system comes from dharma. And we will definitely explore it further, but all the legal system that happens, all the laws that are made, they come from that value system. When the Congress sits down and makes laws, they tap onto these unseen, the vibrations that are there. When a plane crashes into a building, there are some vibrations that go around which we don't see, but it is affected in tangible ways in loss of freedom, loss of trust.
For example, as a mother, the most obvious thing is to take care of her children. या अगर आप रात को सो के अगर उठें, जब आप उठें, and if you're frightened, if you walk out to the grocery store, it's something you've been doing for the last 30 years, but one fine morning you realize that you're scared to walk out, or children might not learn well enough in school. इस डर से कि नहीं कहीं bomb नहीं गिरे. So that is what adharma is. That is imbalance.
Well, dharma, in one sense, yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, taking care of a child is dharma of mother. But in the process, if the child becomes afraid, the child doesn't trust the mother, and there is no understanding, there is imbalance, and that's not dharma. So there should be some kind of, it should be tangible. Dharma is, yes, it sounds very abstract, but the effect should be tangible.
Dharma is, I would say, I would go to one more step further. Dharma is the pattern of life. All encompassing qualities, all encompassing virtue, that is dharma. Dharma doesn't belong to one aspect of life or one group of people. Dharma is common. Dharma is for all. Dharma is virtues. Dharma is system, as he said, value system. Values are meant for everybody. Values are to be followed by everybody. Dharma has to be followed by. If anybody doesn't follow, that means that becomes the state of adharma. That is non-following of dharma. That becomes adharma, which has to be removed, which has to be discarded from our life. Therefore, dharma, you cannot give in one word what is the equivalent of dharma in English. मैं हिंदी में अगर कहूँ धर्म ही है. इंग्लिश में अगर कहूँ the law of being of oneself. मैं क्या हूँ? मैं एक इंसान हूँ. इंसान कौन होता है? इंसान में इंसानियत हो तो वो इंसान है, नहीं तो हैवान है वो. इसलिए इंसानियत एक धर्म है. इंसान की जो इंसानियत है वो उसका धर्म है. इंसान अगर हैवान बने तो हैवानियत उसका धर्म नहीं बन सकती, वो अधर्म है. इसलिए जीवन के स्वरूप को वास्तव में स्वरूप बनाने वाला जो मूल्य होता है, मूल्य, उसको हम धर्म कहते हैं.
A person has a family, he gets up in the morning, he goes about his daily duties, he has a bath, he goes to work, he comes back home, spends time with his children, talks to his wife, goes to bed. All these things are his dharma.
That is the life pattern.
It's a life pattern.
Life pattern. Pattern of life. But the basic principles behind, underneath, these patterns of life are dharma.
So those unspoken, felt
yes.
rules
That's right.
is dharma.
Rules are not written, but rules are followed. Rules are understood.
I think what we have understood is, like all other calamities, adharma also starts in every individual. I mean, each one starts doing through every individual, and it can be a consequence of a group of actions. And of course, there are different reasons why an individual person behaves the way he does. As we go along further in the episodes, we will use more examples, more scenes, more experiences to find out why it is that we do what we do. Dr. Bhatt, let's get back to the characters of the first chapter again. आपने बताया कि Sanjay is like a television media. He was somebody who narrated the entire Mahabharata to Dhritarashtra. But what about Dhritarashtra himself? He was a king, he was a father, but he was also a human being with some obvious faults.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, Dhritarashtra was basically father of the Kaurava family, Kaurava brothers. Duryodhana was the eldest one. And there are some conjectures made that what Duryodhana did was actually the ambitions of Dhritarashtra. And basically in our lives, we always, all of us, every time we do something, we all have done and probably get a chance to do something bad or something that we call bad at times, but we come back into our lives and paths and we don't follow that continuously. But as you said, one thing leads to another, and Duryodhana's life reflects that. You know, he is on a slippery slope, which we will discuss later, but basically he does one thing and then he keeps going doing, and so on and so forth.
There's a very funny, it's not funny, but it's an amusing anecdote about a friend who kept complaining that how people don't follow certain rules, or rather how people allow themselves one folly just because. जैसे यहाँ पे वो कहते हैं कि हम रास्ते पे गार्बेज नहीं फेंक सकते, but the moment you leave this country and go to wherever back home is and you have a ticket stub in your hand, you tend to just throw it just because you don't know what to do with it. I mean, this is one folly, because the next day you will not think twice about throwing a banana peel around. Or then it could be something as serious as the whole quote-unquote green card process, where a person comes to a foreign country with I'm going to work for 5 years, make enough money, go back. At the end of 5 years he decides कि नहीं, अब एक काम करते हैं, citizenship के लिए कोशिश कर ही लें. And after that, when he has children, he says, well, I have enjoyed the system, I have benefited from the system, so why not my children? So let's give it another 5 years. So the point being is, it's a folly which seems to grow one after the other, and apparently this is what happened.
It's funny when you mention all these great things, and that's what happens with Gita also. I will read Gita tomorrow, when I get old. We will try to make it interesting here so that people get into it, whenever they can.
But I was mentioning that the discussion, I remember, एक बार कहीं एक ट्रेन जा रही थी, अभी धर्म की बात है, ट्रेन जा रही थी और सामने ट्रेन ड्राइवर जो है ट्रेन चला रहा है, उसमें गाड़ी में बहुत लोग हैं, सामने एक पशु आ गया, जानवर, तो अभी ट्रेन में तो कुचल जाएगा, तो उसको बचाने के लिए अब क्या करें, उसको बचाएं या सडन ब्रेक डालेगा, वो उसको गाड़ी को रोकेगा, इतने जो अंदर गाड़ी में बैठे हैं लोग सब बाहर भी गिर सकते हैं और अंदर गाड़ी में भी घायल हो सकते हैं. अब क्या किया जाए, उसका धर्म क्या है, उसका वर्च्यू क्या होगा, वर्चुअस क्वालिटी क्या है, लोग क्या समझे, ये हमें सोचना पड़ेगा. धर्म की परिभाषा देते समय अधर्म के बारे में भी सोचना, क्या अधर्म है ये कोई अधर्म है, ये धर्म है. कभी कोई धर्म यहां हमारे बीच में धर्म हो सकता है, किसी और देश में धर्म नहीं होगा, और किसी संदर्भ में some opportunity, at a particular time something can be considered as dharma, something that same in another time may not be dharma.
I think Dr. Jayraman, you made a very good point. Like we have 3 examples in our history. One is Adarsh Purush, that is Ram. The other is Naitik Mahapurush, that's Gandhi. And a Dharmik Purush, and Dharmik Purush is different, like Krishna or Mahavir or Buddha. Or I'm not saying that Ram is not a Dharmic person, but he's classified like an Adarsh. The whole premise of Dharma is that once you get centered, or once you get established in yourself, or once you become a yogi or enlightened, whatever word you use, then whatever comes out of you is spontaneous, and then it's not dependent on the whole world what it will judge it as. When Krishna does something, he is not looking for a judgment or certification from others. But a Naitik Purush usually has to have this right and wrong very well defined. He do no wrong is his motto. And it has a value, because in general, all of us, we haven't become enlightened yet. For we need some discipline, we need something until we get centered, but then that's where all the right and wrong comes out of.